right, guys, I have technically an arc review, technically a series review sort of to bring to you guys today, and I just have to say that I am confused. I think that the book that I'm going to be talking about today is the end of a related series, romance series, that is maybe one of the most confusing and uneven series I've read in a good long while. And I'm going to explain that to you, but I'm going to try to keep that to me and review the book first, so that way I can talk about what I really thought about just this book, and then I'm going to talk about the series itself at the end. But like, I'm gonna see if I can not rant until the end, and I don't know if that's gonna be possible. So the book in question that we are talking about today is A Guide to Being Just Friends by Sophie Sullivan. This is the third book in the Jansen brothers series. It started with 10 Rules for Faking It, which I did review on this channel, albeit in like a mini review form. Then there was How to Love Your Neighbor. That was book 2, and I did get the arc of that, but at the time when it came out, I couldn't get around to reading it. I never even started it, and so I never actually reviewed it on the channel, which turns out to be a good thing. And then this book. So the Jansen brothers series, you may have guessed by the title, is a series that follows the love lives of 3 different brothers. Starts off with Chris in book 1, Noah is book 2, and Wes is book 3. Now, I went ahead and I read book 2 to read book 3, even though you don't have to read any of these books in order. I often like to do that just so I get a flavor of who the characters are, and often sometimes there are like inside jokes that come back, or maybe the third book or the next book in the series builds a little bit on the previous book. That was really not the case with A Guide to Being Just Friends. People who have read books 1 and 2 in this series will know that Wes, who is the third and oldest Jansen brother, really has not shown up in the books like at all. The books take place in California, and for books 1 and 2, Wes has been living in New York. And in book 3, he finally makes the jump to leave New York and come to California to be where his brothers are. Also making a jump is this book's female heroine, Haley. She has been living in LA for a good chunk of years, and she was there with her then actor boyfriend, who ended up being a terrible person. And so when they broke up because he was cheating on her, she left to live in San Verde, which is the California town where this all takes place. And she did a food truck there and did catering. And when she comes to San Verde, she opens up a food store that sells to-go specialty salads. She loves to cook. She loves to share the joy of food. And she thinks that salads will sell really well on this like boardwalk beachy strip of California because it's, as she says, California. So Wes and Haley have a little bit of a not quite meet cute. Haley is going to bake this cake store, coffee place that is nearby her salad shop, and she goes to get her coffee, and they misspell her name. They say Hayden on the cup instead of Haley, and she kind of makes eye contact with a guy across the room who ends up being Wes, and he walks over to her, and she's like, oh, like, am I gonna make a friend? Does this guy want to flirt with me? And he says, Hayden, and she says, no, my name is Haley. And it turns out that Wes is waiting for someone he met on an app whose name is Hayden, and he thinks that Haley is Hayden, but that Haley is pretending not to be Hayden so that she can stand him up. Like, she saw him and she decided that she didn't want to meet with him, and now she's lying about it. He's kind of rude, Reed a lot rude to her, and Haley is like, what in the actual world? And she leaves, and she's like, that guy was terrible. And it just really also throws Wes off. He's already having a really hard time adjusting to life in California with both of his brothers being in committed, happy relationships. And he's just like, oh my God, can nothing go right for me since this move? He's having trouble finding his footing, you know, what he loves to do. He just feels really, really out of sorts, and this doesn't help. That same day, Everly, who is the female lead from the first book in the series, and her friend from the radio station that they work at, come into Haley's store. And they order some salads, they really love them, and the next day they place an order to be delivered to the radio station for lunch. And when Haley goes to deliver this food, she runs into Wes, who awkwardly realizes that she was telling the truth. Her name isn't Hayden. She wasn't the girl who stood him up. And it's just very, very awkward all around. Wes realizes he needs to apologize, goes back to talk to Haley at the salad stop, and they really just strike up a friendship. And both of them are like, you know what? I don't have many friends here. We're both new here. And maybe we should be just friends. That'll work, especially in a romance novel. That'll definitely work. It won't. It won't work. I'm not normally a huge fan of the friends to lovers situation. I tend to get kind of impatient. It's not like enemies to lovers where fun things are happening and it's like funny and weird. But friends to lovers is more of often like a slow burn situation as far as I am concerned. But what I really liked about this is that Haley is someone who, you know, her boyfriend was richer than her when she lived in LA, and he made her feel really dependent on him, but also like bad for that. And Wes, along with the rest of his brothers, is really, really well off. Money is not like a really big deal to them. And they've both been kind of living in really defensive bubbles about their own financial situation, and they have some, you know, blind spots when it comes to that. And what I loved about this is that while Haley is uncertain about trusting people, she's very sure of who she is. And she gives and takes that from Wes, who is like totally down for relying on people and helping other people out and forging those connections, but is really unsure of who he is. He's kind of been like a numbers geek his whole life because that's what his father told him to do, but he loves art and designing video games. And both of this is two people who are in some ways very similar, but in other ways opposites, helping the other person grow in areas that they just need to personally improve, rather than, you know, oh, because we love each other, all of our problems are solved. Because this is a third book in the series, there are a lot of returning characters from the first two books that come back and help to kind of make this found family situation. Haley brings some of her own people to the mix, so it's not totally Jansen brother related, but this one had a really, really strong like friends and family thing going on, which I felt like was also true in book one and was definitely true in book two. And that's a really big thing for me. I love when there are extra characters and other things going on. And it's not just, you know, the two people who are falling in love just talking to each other. They're also talking to other people. And this is one of the strengths of a book like this, which has 2 points of view too, which is we really get to spend time with the individual characters and then who they are together. This book made me laugh. It's very sweet. I really enjoyed it. This book is another clean romance. There is discussion of sex. They clearly are having it, but there are no descriptions of it. So again, this is one you want for the cuteness factor, not the spice factor. And is another book that I've read like that again this year. Again, I don't have anything against that. I just feel like it's weird that I've read so many in a row, and I'm just kind of feeling like maybe I just need to like pick up a smut book. It is just very odd. It is hard for me to talk about how I feel about this book without talking about the rest of the series, because I had such a visceral reaction to book two. So I am just going to say that I thought book one was good. It had a really good discussion of like social anxiety and mental health. I really enjoyed that. I did not enjoy book two. Book two drove me up a wall. And so when I came to this book, I was like, wow, this series is really batting just like 500, 50-50 for me, and I don't know how this is gonna go. And I am happy to say that this book like came back up to book one, and it really was a good discussion of two people who are slightly dysfunctional in their own way, forming this really, really cute and sweet friendship that turns into love. What I really appreciate in a romance like this is that you see not just characters who've grown to love each other, but two characters who have grown as people, and that happens to include loving each other. But you know, their individual personalities, their individual stories, and their individual journeys come out really strongly in this book, and things they both had to learn and work on. And I think that this book was really, really strong with doing that, even if it wasn't like my favorite book ever. So if you have only read one or maybe two books in this series, I think my ranking for my favorites are like 1 and 3 are honestly really, really close together, and then 2 has dropped off a cliff somewhere. Again, I read 2 specifically because I was going to do this review, and I was genuinely shocked how much it upset me. So one thing, again, I mentioned briefly is that Chris, Noah, and Wes come from New York money. And the whole point of the books is that their father is a really terrible person. We've not really met him, but we've heard about his behavior, and he's an awful person. He's really, really cold to his sons. Money is his bottom line. And so first Chris, and then Noah, and then Wes literally move across the country to get away from him and start their own business. However, they don't start from scratch, right? They have all of this money with them. And I really don't remember that being a huge plot line of the first book, except for the fact that Chris owns the radio station that Everly works at. And so she is, you know, kind of flirting, dating her boss, and that's just awkward. I don't really remember him being like a super rich personality playing into that. But in book 2, book 2 gives you Noah, who is the playboy brother who just kind of likes to, like, he's a real estate developer and a house flipper, and he likes to have people, like, pay people to do all this work for him and then reap the rewards and throw his money around. And his girlfriend in that book, his neighbor, who he moves in next to, is a girl named Grace who literally grew up in a trailer park. And so they have very different opinions about money and different personalities, and we are supposed to you know, support Noah and Grace getting together, despite the fact that Noah, like, insults her. He says really insensitive things about money and her background and, like, hard work. And I never really saw his behavior change over the course of that book. Like, he says, like, oh, you know, you're right, and you're helping me, like, learn the value of hard work. But that book really, really put me off, because whereas in book 1, Chris really grows to love and understand Everly, even though she has this social anxiety. Like, Grace and Noah just kind of fall into bed together, and you're like, he's still kind of a rich dick. The money thing is definitely a thing in book 3. I just feel like it's handled a lot better, and Wes clearly doesn't understand sometimes how, like, just kind of using his money to help Haley is a little bit insulting to her. But at the same time, like, Haley has issues just asking anyone for any kind of help, and it's 2 people, like, finding a middle ground, as opposed to like Wes just, like, deeply insulting Haley like Noah does to Grace, and then them just kind of kissing anyway. So if you're going to read this series, just based on that alone, for me, I would suggest reading books 1 and 3, and understanding in the middle there is a story where Grace and Noah renovate a house together and fall in love. It's all you need to know, and you can save yourself the trouble of that one. I genuinely texted a friend, and I was like, I feel like this book was, like, ghost written, because it is just so far off base what books 1 and 3 are. So I was really happy that this book closed this series a lot more strongly than I was thinking it might after what happened in book 2 and reading it right after having finished book 2. So I am cautiously excited for whatever Sophie Sullivan does next. She is 2 for 3 now, which is much better than however I was feeling when I finished book 2. So this book will be out soon. You can get it from your local library, your local bookstore, however it is that you read. Thanks to the publisher and Edelweiss for my arc. Can't believe I've got another one done on time. And I hope to keep giving you these arc reviews on time and finish this month strong. In the meantime, if you've read this series, if you have other opinions on the books, do drop them down in the comments. Let me know. Like, did I totally miss something in book 2 that gives Noah some redeeming qualities? let me know. I'm happy to hear that I missed something in like my rage. Chat me up down there. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time. Bye.